Dudes, what is happening? This is Trent, and it is Friday, September 7th, 2018. This is Trent's Comment Corner. Normally, I cover a lot of questions or comments in one video. Today, kind of got a really big one, and there's a lot to talk about with this one, so let's dig into it. This question comes from Jacob Politzer. Trent, could you please break down what it means to be a professional from your point of view? It's deeply connected with money and how successful you can be in the game industry. I believe me and others appreciate that. So I want to answer your question. It's going to be a lengthy one, but I wanted to mention that this covers a lot of different things beyond just doing concept art for video games. These things will apply if you're in any kind of creative field. I think any field. Some of it might seem obvious to you, but not everybody knows these things and not everybody is aware of them. It's good to bring them up every now and then. It's okay if you've done some of these things. I have too. This is just what I strive to do. These are sort of my own personal rules of what I consider to be a professional and what I strive to do. And it's worked out pretty well. I find myself with a pretty consistent flow of work and a pretty consistent, good relationship with clients. So let's jump right into it. First of all, being a professional is and working at any job, remember that it's a job and it's about building trust. It's about building a relationship. And that means that a lot of the same rules of a relationship apply, and we're going to go over a lot of different points here. But remember at all times that there are a lot of other people that are trying to get your job. So you want to be as much in service to your employer as possible. You want to eliminate problems, take them out of their way, not create more problems for them. The biggest one I found is communication, good communication. You want to make sure that you're getting back to them. If you get feedback on something, send a reply, something that lets them know what to expect next. Don't wait 3 days to reply to an email if you can at all help it. Now, I acknowledge that at some points you're going to be late. You're going to be late on replying to an email or something like that. And it's up to you to do your best to rectify that situation. Don't scurry away or hide. I've worked with some artists who mess up and then it's like they just tuck themselves away and they just don't even reply to emails at all. Because they feel that they messed up, they really screwed up that relationship, and they could have rectified it by simply saying, hey, I'm really sorry, I want to do everything I can to make it right, I want to be more reliable for you, I'm working on it, it's a challenge for me, here's another solution to how we can better improve that communication. Because everybody communicates differently. Do what you can to communicate effectively as much as you can possibly and rectify any problems that do occur with possible new solutions that can improve that communication. I think it's okay to admit when you're stuck. I think it's okay to reply to a client or your employer and say, hey, I don't have a solution for this. Do you have anything that can help me just knock this thing loose? Maybe I'm stuck on this task, or I don't have ideas for this. I need something to bring me a little closer to getting there. Especially if you're early on in your career, it's sort of accepted that you're gonna not have all of the solutions or all the answers. So it's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling with this part. Could you give me some ideas or help me with this? If you're doing that too much, they're going to see you as a burden. But every now and then, I think it's okay. It's okay to fail sometimes, as long as you're showing them that you're really trying and you're doing everything you can to meet their expectations and reassure them of that. And that leads me into another thing, is to know your own limitations, know your own speed and your own abilities. So if you spend a lot more time on characters or something like that, then let them know, hey, I'm going to need an extra day for that. Let them know that in advance when you're scheduling things out at the beginning. I actually like to sit down and work out a schedule with my artists and with my clients so that we know on week number 3, we're going to be working on that asset in the list of stuff that needs to get done. We know where we are in that schedule, and if we fall behind at any time, we're working on weekends to make sure that we're getting back on track. So don't overbook yourself. That's another important factor. Make sure that you're not overbooking and signing yourself up for more work than what you can handle and accounting for possible burnout. You might have those days where you just can't get much done, and that happens to all of us. Also recognize that it's okay to turn down a job before you even begin. I said in a recent video that the contract negotiation phase is one of the most important phases of building a relationship with a client. And that's because you're establishing what's expected of you, of each party. During contract negotiations is the time when you can say, hey, I don't think I can handle this job. It's not within my schedule or my ability set. but I can recommend another artist who can. Help your fellow artists. They will help you back. I've gotten a lot of friends who sent me jobs, and I've sent my friends jobs before in the past, sometimes really amazing ones that I wish I would have done myself, but if I was overbooked, I couldn't do it. And the most important rule, this is still in the communication category, be honest. Building a relationship means building trust, and building trust requires honesty. And that means being honest with yourself and being honest with your clients. No excuses, no BS. That's all a big part of being a good communicator. Just like any relationship, be honest. The second thing, the biggest thing that I see about being a professional is being reliable. And that means doing what you say you're going to do. So if you say, hey, I'll get you that stuff by 11 a.m. tomorrow, if 11 a.m. tomorrow comes along and I don't have anything from you, even a note that says you're going to be a half an hour late, well, then we got a big problem, because that means you're not very reliable, and I never know when to expect artwork from you or when to expect you to actually follow through with what you said you were going to do. But if you say, I'm going to have this thing done for you by this specific time, have it done by that specific time. And that ties in with just meeting deadlines. So if you make a deadline with your client or your employer, follow through. Make sure that you meet that deadline. That's being a professional.
Very professional.
Keep high quality. Do your best all the time. If you're squeezed on a deadline, and sometimes that means, hey, you can't go out and see that awesome new Star Wars movie, I picked that one for a reason. Because you've got to follow through with what you told your client that you were going to get done by that next morning. Well, hey, too bad, so sad. You can't go see that movie. You gotta, if you value the job, do the job. Do what you say you're going to do. Meet your deadlines. Be a professional. Being a professional can also mean stressing you out an awful lot too. And it's a difficult balance, and it takes years to really master this. And I'm by no means a master at it, but it is a struggle to still also be available. That means giving them your telephone number so they can text you, replying to emails throughout the day. Don't just shut everything off. If you're in service to a client, you need to be available. That it's just like being at an office. You can't not be at your desk all day. You have to, and if you do leave your desk, leave a little note that says, I'll be back at such and such a time. Be available to your clients. Don't leave them hanging. And I think there's a reasonability here, because some clients can be like, hey, I need check-ins every hour, and I think that would be absurd. I just wouldn't even take those jobs. But do your best to be available to them, assuage their concerns, and try to do everything you can to eliminate problems from their way, from their path. Reassure them that they're in good hands, that you're going to give them good artwork that looks like your portfolio, your best work in a timely manner. Be a pro. Pricing. Be realistic about your pricing. If you're very slow, try to keep your pricing very reasonable and very, very competitive with people in your quality level, in your level of success. I think plays a factor. I did do a video about how much concept artists get paid, and it is a sensitive topic that could probably do another hour-long video about. Don't be wishy-washy about your pricing. Don't give them a quote on how long it'll take you to do a painting, and then at this particular cost, and then right before the contract is signed, you say, hey, actually, I can only do half that much work, and by the way, my pricing is higher now. You can't really do that. You're creating a situation where your client worked out the budget and you're suddenly changing the pricing on them. That's literally no different than you making an agreement to rent a house or rent a apartment, and then the day that you show up, they say, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you twice as much for you to live here. And you're like, well, I already booked all this stuff to move in. Oh yeah, but and by the way, we're using one of the bedrooms too. Wait, what? No, be consistent about your pricing, and if you give them a quote on something, stick to that through and through. It's okay to renegotiate that for a next contract, but if you made that promise, follow through with that promise. Be good at estimating what your abilities are in the time frame that you're going to be able to do them. That kind of ties into the last point. So if you say that I can do 1.5 paintings per week, at this particular price point, deliver on what you said you'd be able to do at that price point. I got some horror stories about that one. The other factor is get all that stuff in writing, in your contract. Before you do anything, have a contract, have an agreed upon set amount of hours that you're working, time that you're spending on it, number of iterations, who owns it, how much it's going to cost. All that kind of ties into establishing your relationship and establishing relationship boundaries before you get too much into it. You don't jump right into a relationship with somebody without establishing these things. Not in real life and not in the professional world. Be a pro. This isn't a requirement of being a professional, but it's a nice little thing that I like to try to add is to be a problem solver for them. So help them find solutions. If they're struggling with something on the visual side that is beyond your expectations, you can throw in suggestions. Hey, I found some reference images that might help you to solve that problem. This just kind of like puts a little bow on the top of the package, if you know what I'm saying. It gives them a little bit of something that lets them know that this guy is going to eliminate challenges from our path and make our whole product a lot nicer without any additional cost. And more importantly, he's not going to be adding problems to our development. I've had artists who just apply a lot more problems to the task than solutions. And that can really discourage me from wanting to work with them because I'm dealing with them getting their driver's license or sorting out their personal financial issues. Your personal issues are not your employer's issues. You don't want to be like telling them, oh, I couldn't get that done because my brother came in from out of town or because my mom is sick. Sorry, I didn't get that done because I couldn't make the rent this month, so I had to work another job. I think if you got into a car accident and that's a real thing, I think that's okay to let them know that. But it's not okay to say, oh, I didn't get that done after the fact because I was sick or because I just didn't feel well or because I stayed up too late. That sort of a thing. It's not acceptable. Your employer is not your parent. Your employer is somebody that is benefiting from working with you. So be of benefit to your employer and help them find solutions to their problems instead of creating problems. Be a pro. This one covers a lot of questions that had come in recently as well about some of the things that have been happening in the video game industry specifically. I want to talk briefly about appropriate behavior. Let's just say that the world isn't perfect, but what we can do for our part as individuals is to always try to keep an appropriate behavior. Look, I don't want to dig into the nitty-gritty of this stuff. Just for my part, I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about politics. And I only talk about money with the legal guys or the guys that I have to talk about money with, specifically when working with a client or other professionals. I don't think it's okay for people to flirt with each other, especially during meetings. That's kind of gross, actually. Nobody wants to hear about how you like to party or any of your sexual exploits or what kind of drugs you like to do with your free time. Hey man, what you do in your personal life, you can have all kinds of like nasty jokes and junk that you do with your personal life. I think that's totally like your business. I'm 100% for individual rights and that sort of a thing. But me personally, when I'm working with other professionals, I try to just keep a little bit of that separation so that we're just talking about the business and pleasant things. I try to just overall just be a pleasant person to be around and not make people feel uneasy or uncomfortable or weird about working with me. And just don't be a weirdo. I guess it's just the thing. Don't be a weirdo with your coworkers, man. Don't sabotage their computers or send out mass emails with embarrassing stuff that'll make them not want to work with you. Just don't be a weirdo. I also want to suggest that it's important for each of us to let others know when we are uncomfortable. It's okay in a meeting if somebody says something that's inappropriate to say, hey, now I'm uncomfortable. Or, geez, oh, you made that uncomfortable. Let people know that it's not like necessarily something that you're into. As a general rule, I try to act as though every interaction that I have with a client or with another coworker is being recorded, documented in email or video somewhere, someplace for evidence that could be used against me if it were so needed to be. I think we can all do a little bit better on our own parts, being responsible for ourselves and how we manage ourselves in terms of appropriate behavior. Hot button topic. And I don't want to go too much into detail on it because it's a fiery topic. It's fiery. But when discussing professionalism, I try to keep pretty low-key about that stuff. I try to keep it pretty chill. I try to keep it pretty pleasant. It's a personal goal of mine to try to make others feel comfortable. It's just something I like to do. Confidentiality. Sometimes you're working on something top secret. It's like you're working for the CIA or something. This is important to your clients. They've got top secret projects. They don't want you spilling the beans about how they're working on Superman, the video game that's done like by Rocksteady or something. I'm just kidding. I don't know. That might not. I don't freaking know. I don't work with them. The secrecy of their project should be your secrecy. So don't work on their things in public places. Don't discuss them at restaurants. Don't spill the beans to your buddy who works at Kotaku about a top secret project. Actually, I think Kotaku's pretty respectful of NDAs of companies as well, and they check their sources. But it would be very unprofessional to talk about things that you've agreed in your contract to keeping secret. So uphold your NDAs. Your company's and your employer's secrets are your secrets. What should be secret for them should be secret for you too. So zip it. And the last thing I want to bring up is love what you do. Not a requirement of being a professional, but it shows in the work. If you're not into it, and your heart's not into it, you don't feel like you really love it, man, maybe before you even take on any new contracts, take that break. Go to Japan. Take a trip to Europe or something. Have an awesome time. Rediscover your love for what you do. And when you're ready, come back to it. But don't take a bunch of jobs if you're not loving it. If you don't love what you do, don't do it. Stay enthusiastic about your craft and have a lot of fun with it. Try to have as much fun with it as you can. Continue to develop your craft. Keep learning at all times. Do what you can to stay excited about learning new techniques, new technical aspects to your craft. Every now and then I delve into programming, game design, 3D. I'm digging into Unity Engine. I'm digging into all the tools and latest technologies that are coming up in my business and in my industry so that I can be more efficient and more effective and more cost effective for my clients so that I'm always of value. Everything you do should increase your value. And so those are my basic rules for what I like to do and what I consider to be professional. Can't cover everything, but that's a long video already. I want to thank my wife, Victoria. We sat down together and made a pretty lengthy list. I went through all of my notes of all the artists that I've worked with in the past and challenges that I've run into, things where I felt that I made a mistake. I do keep a journal of all of my relationships with every artist and every client that I've ever worked with. And I found that by sticking to these basic rules, I've found that I tend to have really great relationships with my clients that continue to get renewed. And so I hope that really helps you, whether you're an employee somewhere or whether you're contracting, you're a freelancer or something like that. As you guys know, every Friday I sit down and do a Trent's Comment Corner. Sometimes it's just one question like this because, as you can tell, it needed it. And sometimes I just answer a lot of smaller comments and questions. And sometimes just spreading the love is nice too. I love hearing from you guys. As usual, I always love to see your progress. If you're doing any of my tutorials or anything like that from my Photoshop cheat box or something like that, people have been posting those on my Twitter. So tagging me over on Twitter. I'll share them. I love to see your guys' progress as well. So let's keep in touch, baby. And I'll see you guys on the Manyan de Bon. Ciao, baby. Oh, yeah.